Okay, I'm giving this a shot. So here is this book. It's called Squanto's Journey, and it's written by this gentleman, Joseph Bruhack. And I've actually seen his sister, Marge Bruhack, speak in real life, and they are of Abenaki descent. And one of the things that they're both dedicated to is telling Native American stories. And just, I thought it was worth sharing this with you. I have to see how quick I can read this because I only have 15 minutes to read this to you guys out loud. So we'll see how this goes. But somewhat like our book when we read Encounter in the fall, or the winter, whenever we read it, I wanted you to think about Squanto's perspective on this and know a little bit more about him. Certainly, since the Pilgrims consider him the person who saved them, and he really did. Okay, so I'll read some. I'll show you the pictures if I can. Okay, so here's the first picture. My story is both strange and true. I was born in the year the English call 1590. My family were leaders of the Patuxet people, and I, too, was raised to lead. But in 1614 I was taken to Spain against my will. Now it is 1621, and I am again in my homeland. My name is Squanto. I would like to tell you my tale. So Squanto was the narrator of the story. Think about first-person perspective. Um, I look up and watch the heron flying overhead. It goes toward the falls that gave our people their name. We were the Patuxet, the people of the falls. Our cleared fields were not empty of people then as they were when the English pilgrims landed in the freezing moon of 1620. Only 6 winters have passed, but so many things have changed. I remember that day in 1614, so this is 6 years before the pilgrims, okay? White men had come often to fish in our bay and trade. They had brought us fine things in exchange for beaver and deerskin. This time, when their tall ships with sails like wings of giant birds anchored offshore, this time was different. John Smith was one of the English captains. He and his officer, Thomas Dermer, traded with us. I liked the way that Dermer shook my hand. Smith had learned much from dealing with other Indians in the summer land of Virginia. He knew we valued honor. The other captain was Thomas Hunt, and after Smith left, Hunt landed at Patuxet. He told us he was Smith's friend. "Come, feast on my ship," he said. And more than 20 of us went aboard to share food with the friends. But Hunt was no friend. He set sail, taking us with them as captives. Left behind were our own families, our homes, our people. Our lives were no longer our own. So you can hear some of the same things that, Jane Yolen did when she wrote Encounter, too. But this is a true story. Soon we were crossing the wild salt waters. The journey was long, but my spirit did not desert me. I remembered I was a Nisi, a man of courage. I told stories to my people and urged them to stay strong. Hunt took us to Malaga in the land of Spain. There we were sold to be slaves, but men who served the Creator lived there. It was they who called themselves brothers who freed us from our chains. They weren't like priests or monks. I learned more of their language. I let them teach me about their ways of thanking the great mystery. I told them that what I wanted most, I wanted to return to my home. And with the friar's help, I went to England. English ships often sailed toward the sunset. I realized that if I could be of use to the English, they might take me with them. So this is this amazing part of the story. He was in Spain, and he was able to get from Spain to England. It took much work, but I learned that the language well, and in March of that year they call 1619, I sailed back to New England at the side of my friend Thomas Dermer, one of John Smith's officers. Our memories of each other were like the taste of good water. He told me that the things were not well between my people of the First Light and the English. Englishmen and their ships were now being attacked when they came to shore. Perhaps if I accompanied the English, I could speak with the Indians, and they could trade again in peace. My heart fell as if it were soaring on an eagle's wings as the ship cut through the waves, but I also feared what I might find. Where there were where there were where there were this many people, he said, telling me of the great illness in New England brought on by white traders. Now only this many remain. He holded back all but 2 of his fingers. It proved, as he said, the sickness had become down upon Patuxet like the blow of a war club, and only a few of my people had survived. My wife, my children, my parents, and all those close to me were gone. I will not say their names now. I will speak them again when my own feet climb the highest mountain and I walk the road of stars to greet them. Together, Thomas Dermer and I did our work. We made friendly contact with the Nemasket and the Poconoket. More than once, my words saved the life of my English friend. Peace seemed within our reach. But Epinow, the powerful sachem of Capawack, viewed the English as one might a deadly serpent. Epinow, too, had been taken to England as a slave and brought back to act as a guide. Oh, I don't think I knew that. He had escaped and vowed to always fight the white men. The deeds of other Englishmen convinced his people that he was right, and in the summer of 1620, as Thomas Sturmer and I talked of peace, an English captain invited a party of Indians on board their ship. Then suddenly the white men shot them down. When we reached the island of Capawack, Epinow and his warriors attacked us. Many English were killed. Thomas Dermer was wounded. With my help, he was able to escape, but I was taken captive and given to the Poconoket as a prisoner. Think of all the things this guy has been through. That November, when the Mayflower reached the shore, the Poconoket watched. They did not come close to the English. If the Poconoket had been stronger, they might have attacked the white men, wiped them out, or driven them away. But the Poconoket were still weak from the great sickness. Where there had been thousands, now there were only hundreds of them. The strength of our people was so small now that the Narragansetts to the south, untouched by the plague themselves, ordered the once proud Poconoket and Nemasket to pay them tribute. I spoke to Massasoit, the sachem of the Poconoket, as a niece should, with respect and honor. Befriend the English, I said. Make them come to understand and support our people. Massasoit did not listen at first. He watched silently, though, through the first winter. Then Samoset came to visit. He was a sachem of the Pemaquid people, who lived farther up the coast. He had done much trading with the English, and he knew some of their language. Let me talk with the, I don't know if I can read this word, Songlemissneok, he said to Massasoit, nodding to me as he spoke. Massasoit agreed. And the next day, March the 16th of 1621, Samoset strode into the English settlement. Welcome, English, he said in their native tongue. He showed them the two arrows in his hand. One had a flint arrowhead, the other had the arrowhead removed. The arrows symbolized what he offered them, either war or peace. The English placed a coat about his shoulders to warm him. They invited him into one of their houses. They gave him a small water, biscuits and butter, pudding and cheese. The food was so good, Samoset said to me later, laughing as he spoke. I decided to spend the night. And when he left the next day, he promised to return with a friend who spoke their language well. It's amazing to think how some people are really good at languages and can pick that up. So it was that 5 days later, on the 22nd of March, I walked with Samoset back into my own village. And once Patuxet, now it was Plymouth. I looked around them. Though much had changed, I knew that I at last had returned to the land of my home. Perhaps these men can share our land as friends, I told my brother at my side. In the moon that followed, there was much work to do. The Poconoket freed me to be a guide and interpreter for the English. Not only did I act as an envoy between the English and our people, I also had many things to teach the white people about survival. They knew little of hunting and almost nothing of planting. It had been the job of the Patuxet women to care for the crops, while men such as myself hunted. But I had observed much in my years of captivity, and I had seen in Newfoundland how the English learned from our people how to grow corn. I'm going to add one thing too, because I've read a grown-up book about some of this stuff, and Squanto was in a really amazing position because he spoke native languages and he spoke English, and so he was needed by both sides. And listen, he looked out for himself. Like, Squanto was going to help Squanto, and I don't blame him. He worked himself into a position of a really importance because he's the in-between. Use the small fish that watch upon our shore in great numbers, I told the English. Bury those fish in the earth, and they will feed the corn. Good science connection. I showed them how to plant the seeds of corn and beans and squash together in hills. I told them when it was the moon of hoeing. They listened well and worked hard. I came to see these pilgrims could be our friends, and we theirs. Together we might make our home on this land given to us by the Creator of all things. A good harvest was brought that fall. Some of their English crops have not done well, but the three sisters, the corn, the beans, and the squash, have done well. And as I look at the beans growing up the stalks of the corn, I think of how our two people have become entwined. I feel hope for our children in the seasons to come, and with our help, the English have learned enough about hunting and fishing to provide the food for a great feast, such as this one, the feast for all of our people. Now we eat together. I give thanks. I have seen more in my life than most men, whether Indian or English. I have seen both death and life come to this land that gives itself to the English and Indian alike. I pray that there will be many more days to give thanks together in the years that follow. It was a nice big picture for like a Thanksgiving week thing. I am Squanto. I am known to all those who gather here, English, Pokanoket, Nemasket, even a few of my own surviving Patuxets. I speak to you as a Nisi, a man of honor. I will never leave this land. I give thanks for all of our people, the creator of all things. There is a nice author's note. It's like way too long to read. Um, Maybe I'll take a picture of it and post it for you guys to look at. It just kind of goes into some detail about, um, about how we get some stuff for the story. And yeah, so I think we hear so much about pilgrims, 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 yay, pilgrims, Thanksgiving, but there's other, parts of the story to think about. I'm also going to try to post for you something a little fun. You can, did you know that the Charlie Brown Thanksgiving also has a separate part called like it's the Mayflower Charlie Brown, and it's moderately accurate. So if you want to see the Charlie Brown and Snoopy version of all this, which includes Samoset and Squanto, believe it or not, I might include that for you guys too. Okay, so I'm hopefully also going to be doing some kind of little vocab review for you. Um, so many videos this week. I don't know. I'm curious to know how the vocabulary wheels or other things are going. Maybe I'll put up a little thing tomorrow so you guys can respond to me. I miss you. I'm thinking of you guys, and I hope you guys are doing well.